Hey everybody, great to be back with you. My name is Mike Fairborn. Nice to have you here for our swing trading class where we do look at that short-term time frame on those setups, generally coming out of price patterns or different sort of indicators that are showing us signs of strength in the market, but really kind of that short-term move that a lot of traders, investors might be looking at for both stocks and options. I look forward to discussing that with you today. And really today I want to talk about spotting those patterns specifically like bull flags in particular, where we're seeing those initial signs that the move is just getting ready to go. In fact, I have quite a few of those to share with you today, whether we're looking at bull flags or we're looking at other sort of price patterns. I've got a couple of those to share, and one that we talked about last week that I did get actually put on for you during the week because we did get that breakout, if you remember that stock. So I'll look forward to going through that with you and hope you're all having a good day. It is a happy Tuesday, right? Markets are up a little bit in anticipation possibly of that CPI data coming out tomorrow. We'll keep tabs on that. But I would like to welcome you here to our group. I can't see the very, very top chat, but whoever it is that posted first or second, welcome to you, because I do want to thank Cam for pinning our X handles up top there. Thank you, Cam, for that very much. Welcome Life in the Fast Lane. We've got Jerry, Scott, Will, Riceberg, Lola, Danny, Tony, Frank, as well as Michael and Jay Richardson. Well, welcome to all of you. Any questions, comments you have, definitely throw those in the chat so we can address those for you. Joining the chat by a really good friend of mine, Cameron May. Appreciate him being a colleague of mine for years as well. You can follow us both on X, Cameron May CS. Make sure you get that wording right. Cameron May CS at the end for Charles Schwab. Mike Fairborn CS. There are some imposters out there. I've got a few stragglers myself that have quite a few followers associated with them. But if you follow us in that way, you'll get us. So those are the official accounts. We do have that the check mark as well. So keep all that in mind. Well, folks, let's get going here. And so we'll start off with some disclosures first. Show on the road. Information here is for general information purposes only. Should not be considered an individualized recommendation. Now, options do carry a high level of risk. They're not suitable for all investors. Short options can be assigned at any time up to expiration, regardless of the in-the-money amount. That is ITM. An ITM option does have a higher risk of being assigned early. Short puts risk purchasing the underlying stock at the strike price when the market price of the stock will likely be lower. Now, paper money software application for education purposes only. Investing does involve risks. We know that, but it does include the loss of principal. There's no guarantee that execution of a stop order will be at or near the stop price. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. And folks, hey, you'll notice something. We got a second layer of slides here because now we can share with you some of the futures, which I wanted to do. Just keep this in mind that futures and futures options trading does involve substantial risk. It is not suitable for all investors. And with that, you know what I wanted to do? It was actually start off with, just quickly, and we'll pull this up on the screen here. But yeah, I do have a number of futures contracts that I did want to take a look at. I'll show them on the screen just quickly. Really super brief market review. We'll pull this guy up right here, and we will look at the S&P 500. But you know, we've got our futures over here on the left-hand side. Now, a quick note on that: we are up. There is an anticipation of the CPI numbers maybe being better than expected. I did send out an X post on that. So back to that handle that Cam posted, Mike Fairborn CS, you could take a look at that. What's kind of noted right now is what is going to be the impact on tariffs. And so if we get a report that's bigger than, let's say, the expected change, then you can really kind of expect market movement out there, which could be, fairly big, depending upon, how big of an announcement it is relative to the expectations of that CPI data. Coming over here and just pulling up, now that we've got the ES up, we do have volume. I had shown this in my market and sectors class on Wednesday, where we do kind of break into detail, get a sense of where the markets might be heading. But I just want to show you guys this because it was something that I was looking at and did find of interest. But if I throw in the volume profile on here, you will see that 10% of volume, if we're looking at the last, there it is right there, on a 1-year basis, even over the past 1 year, look where that point of control is at, folks. And this can mean, that's the highest red line. What it can mean is all this volume down here. I'll tell you what it does mean. First of all, it means all this volume, when correlated to a specific price, it came in at that point right there, which we were really struggling at. Now, this is our first day trading above that level in terms of the S&P 500 index. Again, we're using this as a general guide. It still looks at the same 500, roughly 500 companies, the S&P E-mini index futures contract. But it gives us a sense because oftentimes it does lead the S&P 500 just by a little bit. But that gives us volume. And you can see over here that there could mean, if we can hold this level, that it could present support right here, right? That's kind of the corollary to resistance. If you have a break above resistance, then you might find, shoot, I just spelled the whole thing out, might as well. You may have, in fact, support residing there. And that could be interesting because we do have, and I know many of you know this because we've looked at it here, but we do have this very long and extensive upward trend, do we not? And we may be in the position of resuming that upward trend. What's interesting is the last time we actually saw a move like this, folks, it was right there. That's COVID, right? That's COVID. I mean, we did recover, but it can take a little bit of time. But the next thing is really, just like you'd see on any sort of a big decline like this happens to be tariffs. One was COVID, but the expectations were tariffs. But what you did is you eventually broke above those highs and you kind of held that ground. That'd be the next kind of step if we do it. Just a side note there, but it does sort of, big picture, make the scenario a little bit more bullish for the market if, in fact, we are looking at, which we oftentimes do, those inverted head and shoulders patterns, right? Where you're getting the shoulder, head and shoulder, which is also kind of a bull flag. I mean, if you look at one portion of it, it looks like a bull flag there, or just simply the bull flag. We might be getting some strength in the market. Basically, when the market's up like this, we might just be getting a lot of companies in the S&P 500 that are also showing some of that bull flag strength. Now, we want to do this. By the way, welcome to all of you just joining us here. Good to have you on board. Got Cam in the chat. We are set and ready to go. And let's see. Question coming through. I'll just hit this initially. It looks like there's a divergence on the RSI and the current trend looking at the daily. Yeah, so there is, and that is an interesting point. And that's one of the things that we'll look at in this class. In fact, I talk a lot about divergence. We did a divergence code on volume that you can find divergence very quickly. We did that last week on the ThinkScript class if you want to see any codes that could help you with, potentially help you find those. But what I wanted to show you is what Martin is pointing out here. And this can be an early indication because RSI, they can be, that's one indicator that can be somewhat leading. It can lead price action. You'll notice over here, we did break highs. But over here on the RSI, if I draw that same line from those highs, a little bit of a slope coming down, as you can see. We're at the top of the range, so it's recovered a little bit, but we are still breaking down, and that can be an interesting indication to keep an eye on there. That's why that CPI could be interesting, and because everybody's kind of watching to see how tariffs are going to impact potential inflation data. Thus far, it's been okay. It's been good, actually. So keep that in mind. So thanks for pointing that out. That was all on the ES there, too. But let's take a look at what we had looked at. You guys remember we talked about DE last week, and DE actually had a pretty good bounce earlier. We put on 25 shares on this. It's kind of a fairly expensive stock. It's at 500, not cheap, $500. We did 25 shares on it in this particular class. That was kind of our trend line break. We saw a hold right there, close above the high of the low day. It broke up, it kind of dipped a little bit and bounced back, which is interesting. Again, these guys are very much tied into farm equipment. They could be beneficiaries of more manufacturing in the U.S. Due to the tariff situation. This is what we've got thus far on it. It's up, if you believe it or not, it's up already, 500 and, no, I'm sorry. It's only up 45. That's the average price we bought at. My apologies. It dipped actually quite a bit today. It's a very small move, but we'd seen kind of a history of these flag patterns here. Anyways, this is kind of steady as she goes right now. You can see we've got our stop order listed below for a potential exit point. This was a break above the prior high and a bit of a follow through here. And again, folks, it was a play on T for short, tariffs benefiting a manufacturing company in the U.S., mostly around farm equipment. But the other one that popped it that we put a trade on was CAT. Heavy equipment still, but more tied into construction type equipment. We looked at it last week. That was the sideways channel, as you can see right over here. And we just broke above it. Now, within that sideways channel, we got a bit of a bull flag. It was actually a bit of almost like a pennant, which is kind of like a triangle pattern fitting inside of the potential flag. There was a good support base there where it gapped up from right there. And we were kind of holding this range. But remember, the nice thing about patterns is it's not just maybe the possibility of an entry point because it's breaking out of that pattern. It's where the potential target could be. And if that is a longer term flag, we've got to adjust our y-axis for this. If in fact this was a flag pattern, I'm going to draw the big one off the bottom here. But there could be a longer term move in play. And it might take a while, but we're really looking in this class for maybe a shorter term move, maybe 3 to 14 days or so. We're going to duplicate that pattern. I want to say it could have a move up that high, kind of getting close towards or even breaching towards prior annual highs or yearly highs here, if that was the flag pattern sort of follow through. Okay, let's clear that off for now. But you'll notice that there are mini flags within here too. Notice over here, let's say, for example, if this was a flag pullback, I realized it was right off the bottom. Not a ton of indications that it was going to reverse there, but just to give us a sense of the 10 to 14 days, that's about 14 days right there. So you're giving it like basically half a month or so to potentially rally. What would 14 more days be from here or a breakout? You'd be looking at maybe closer towards the end of the month. You're giving it maybe some time to rally. And, just above this level, we do have the 400 listed here. But this was put on yesterday. 50 shares is all. And our P&L is actually negative still. We're down $1 from where I got in at. But I did get in, not perfectly at the breakout, but I did capture it yesterday. Okay, we'll see if the volume starts to pick up here as well. But that is one that's kind of breaking out here. And again, it could be tied into tariffs. We'd mentioned over here that there was a long-term support level, resistance now that price moved above it. Resistance. Okay, potential support now. That's the question. Will we base here? That generally is quite a bit of sort of a basing indication, a sideways move. And we are, folks, just beginning to get moving if it follows through. But it did move outside of that range. We could say that for sure. We'll see if it does follow through and go higher. All right. Oh, there is a quick survey. Thank you for that. It was posted again. Cam made note of it in the chat. If you're able to put some notes in there, if there's something you like or something useful, whatever the case is, folks, 2 questions. Love to hear from you guys. Any feedback as well. There is an explanation there if you have any topic requests as well. But I look at those. I'll read every one of them. So too will my manager. All right. Very good. So let's do this. Yeah. So on that survey too. Yeah. So it's 10 if you loved it. 1 if you hated it. Whatever the case might be. But it's there's a little rating system in there. Anyhow, let's keep this show rolling here. We did 2 more trades last week as we were looking to collect last week. We talked about it. Higher premiums. There was some discussion on that. One of the stocks we looked at was Meta, and we looked at a short put vertical on this as opposed to the stock. We did one on Alphabet too, where we did the stock and the short put vertical, but it did unfold pretty well from, let's say, last week, which was, I think, the third, right about here, is where we put this trade on. It had already broken out higher. Let's just take a look and see how we're doing on that. We'll go to the trade tab. There we go. Oh, wow. We're right at the edge of 35 strikes. So we're well out of the money, which is a positive for this particular trade, because remember, we sold the higher put and we bought the lower, trying to capture the difference between the two. And we may have done that right there. So there was a total of $1,030 we could make on a one contract here if it just stayed above the 620 is the expectation for the trader here for a potential move if it were to flag higher. The other thing is, though, is we did cap that risk by buying 5 strikes lower the put. And so this costs $925. if you look at the difference here, basically we're looking at really roughly to gain at expiration about $100. But that was the comparison. Remember I think the delta on this was really, really quite low as well. A delta, again, is just a measure of a $1 move in the price of the underlying stock. For every $1 increases higher the underlying stock, the option range will move roughly by the amount of the delta. It's also an expectation of what's expected in terms of a percentage of the stock. People will say, this is my expectation of the percentage of the stock getting down there. Like right now, in the next 38 days, there is an expectation that the stock would go, according to Delta, the way they would use Delta, if it were to drop to 630, and we're quite a bit above that. But if we were to do that, there's they would say 13% would be their expectation of that happening. So not very high. I think ours was on the low range as well, but prices have continued higher. We're only gaining, maybe at this point, let's see, down 550, up 610. So what are we about? Well, $60 or so. Our max gain over here would be about real close to 100 at expiration. So that could potentially be closed. But if you look at it, we're all the way down at 620. So again, if the price of the stock can hold above there without any earnings, we got past earnings. Above that price, the expectation is, even if it were to go down a little bit up sideways, the expectation is to collect the max gain. So I'm just going to keep that on for now. We'll take a look at it next week and maybe decide to close it. Now, we did something different with our last trade from last week, which was Google. Alphabet, which had this really big run up, and actually it just had a huge decline back down, maybe like almost a shooting star, kind of a setup where we did the same thing. We did a short put vertical, and the short put, as you can see over here, let's take a look at it. How are we doing on this one? We sold it for 360. It was at 100. The strike price was 160. We're down to 149. So if we were just selling the put alone, this would be our unrealized gain right now, about $207.50. But we capped the risk, and we did that. So let's see, 360 to 236. So it's a little bit more than $100 here that we could make, but it's the difference right now. You can see this one is down, and that's what happens when you buy the put, but it will define that risk for you, define risk. It's a lot different from just the short put. It's also a lot different from buying shares of the stock itself. Okay, so that's how those are doing. You can see down about 130 there and up about 205 right now. So, very close to $75 or so of a gain. And that is done through time decay. And that was on a one contract basis with really, you'd have to say there was just, all else equal, less chance of it going against us because we're selling a lot lower as opposed to just buying stock where it starts to go down immediately and it could have an impact on us over a period of time. Now, we did buy the 100 shares too of Google and or Alphabet, and that's doing a little bit better. Now, we were up a lot more today, but this just on the 100 share position is up $615 right there. So there's that, and that is the move right there out of that base. Now, one of the things I would say is that when we do look at these trades, remember that was the flag pattern right there that we were looking at? And by the way, this had broken above prior highs. I'm just reversing back in time what we were looking at, folks. It was right around that 165, kind of splitting the difference between that 170 and 160 level. We came right down to that level. Folks, there's the bounce right there. And we did hit our T1 target, which is the top of the range. T2, as you will recall, is going to be the full range of the flag. Let me just change colors so that we don't confuse anybody, but that's T1 right there. That's the full move up, and I'm just going to eyeball it, but it would be somewhere perhaps over here, maybe close to 190, or this lower range of a lot of support previously, and maybe now, there's a gap down. Resistance is what it would be now. Resistance, right? R-E-S. Resistance. Okay, at 190. And that's the full T2, or the target 2, full range. Now, the question is, And I want to put this into the chat right now. Do we take the T1 or the T2 at this point? We've seen some strength in here. We'll see. This might have to do too with your guys' expectation about the market, and that's what I'm going to get from this, dude. So let me just type this in. Later. Okay. And vote if you can. I'll just give it a few minutes, or well, yeah, I can give it a little bit of time, but do we take the T1 now, the T1 target, or the T2 later? And later question mark, because we don't know if it will be later. It's also posed as a question as well. But you can see, and I'm referring to the stock right now. We might just sit on the option itself, but we can take the stock if we wanted to, or we could let it ride a little bit. The other thing is, remember, after it's taken out the T1, what some traders will do is they will do something like this. They'll do the simple, well, we've talked about this. I kind of mix it up a little bit. Exponential moving average, which is a little bit quicker. The 9 or the 10, and they'll take a look at that and they'll say, you know what? I'm happy to take it off the table, but let's give it a chance to ride. So I want to let you guys think what you want to think on this. Let's let it ride until it breaks the 9. Now the 9's not perfect. You're going to give up some off the top, generally speaking. But it looks like we're at a 54 right now in terms of taking it. So we might take it, give it 3 more seconds, 2, 1. I think we're going to go ahead and just end that poll right now, folks. It's very close to a 50-50. You guys can kind of decide. I'm going to go ahead and just end the poll right now. We take the T1 now. Yes. Or later would be no. So I didn't have that like perfect, but 57% says we take the initial stock now. That was what that was for. I guess you could have said yes to both. Now that I'm thinking about it, take the T1 now or the 2T later. Yes and no. So let's just say it was around T1, correct? You guys are on the same page there? To take the T1 now, yes. Okay. I should have just left it there because then no would have meant, hey, T2. But we did it quick. All right, let's go ahead and just clear that one out. But you can see the difference. So there's more at risk, of course. We're just going to put this trade in for the close. Send that guy through. And we pocketed real close to $800 on that move. Now, it wasn't a really cheap stock, but you can see generally what we got from that carrying additional risk. There was some additional risk we carried for sure. And what was one of the main risks? The main risk was as we were looking at it, we could have gotten stopped out below or below that point, whereas we might have had just a greater chance possibly of not getting knocked out of the short put vertical because it gave it more flexibility. It could have gone sideways. It could have gone down. Didn't have to go up. Those were the trade-offs there. Okay? All right. Very, very good. Well, hey, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to look at some new positions. I think we're all caught up in the chat. Excellent. All right. Well, tying back in to price patterns that are just giving us those initial indications that they might too be ready to get started. Kind of like John Deere did, kind of like Meta did, right? Meta had, I think, the biggest run of all, and it just so happens all we had on that were the short put verticals, but you could see that flag pattern right there, right? We're looking at something very similar, but today we want to just see initial signs. Are we getting the close above the high to low day as of like yesterday or even today at the close? Are we in position to do that? So let's start off with a few of those right now. And we are back to BWA. Now, this one's actually taking out, when I say initial moves, we just got the hold yesterday, and there's the break right there. And that's actually quite a strong move coming right out of the base. What is interesting with this is if you come over here and look at this with me, folks, sideways, okay? And you can kind of see it's not perfect, but there could be shaping up here a bit of a sort of a longer term. It's like a cup and handle. I said shoulder, and it's sort of because sometimes those cup and handles do look familiar, especially with the leg coming in here. But the fact of the matter is, it took a little while to develop here. It sort of looks like that cup and handle pattern too. We did get past earnings, and one of the indications you'll get when prices hold flat up here, it is oftentimes, not every time, but it can be correlated to, let's just point to it right there, earnings. They beat earnings expectations. You can see the gap right here. They continued to climb. And a lot of times when that happens, it simply just means that they guided higher as well. A quick look at the weekly chart just to review this. Now, if we were to rally up here, and we don't know if this is going to be, it's really kind of one of the stronger moves off the bottom. And sometimes those stronger moves can, have these extended runs. Right now, we're just looking at that 10 to 14 days. And you can see over here, if I just do a 14-day move, do you see the run? It was basically there. And we're just looking for something like that to follow through over here. Maybe test prior highs or whatever the case might be. It's not too expensive of a stock right now. We don't know for sure if it's going to break above this level. And what I might want to do, I'll put it on right now just so that we have it under our belt to look at it right now, because it is fairly strong. In fact, let's pull up. I'm just going to kind of compare. Let's see. Volume's at about at 1.8 right now. Not tons of volume. I don't know if there was news tied into it or not, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to put 50 shares in here. If it closes above there and we get like a second day follow through, I'll try to add this additional shares in. And one of the reasons is because there's a little bit, I realize we stopped here, but I don't know if we're fully out of the neck of the woods in terms of resistance, maybe just barely. And again, what does that do when we have 50 shares as opposed to 100? One of the nice things is it could get our position started if we're right, and we can add to it if there's further indications that it's going to go higher. But also on the risk side, if we're only risking 50 shares and prices go down, so there's 50, and if we go down, well, we're losing half as much as we would have with, let's say, 100 shares. So we're getting a trade sort of under our belt before we might have full indications that it's ready to go. There's still time left in the trading day. We don't know if it'll close above there, but we can say it took out longer. There was certainly a longer term resistance level it took out. And by the way, man, really, really solid sideways flag there. So we're trying to build on that with some of those initial indications of a move. Let's go ahead and add the 50 in there. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts on that, if that's making sense to you around the 50 contracts as you're trying to balance out maybe risk potential with reward, getting a position under your belt, kind of going from there. I'm going to do an OCO bracket on it, but let's click over here first, get this all set up with a 50. I'm going to go ahead and click on my little indication there. Second. There we go. So I just clicked on this, and that lines up the potential limit exit area as well as the stop area. And with that, what I want to do right now is just adjust these a little bit higher, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to set the 50 contracts up. I'm going to say 40 for now. And on the stop itself, we are going to go down to about 31. Okay, now I'm going to go good to cancel on these. There is a method to my madness here, believe it or not, but let's just go ahead and take a look at it. So that is the order, 50 contracts, 50 shares. I'm sorry, 50 shares. This is stock we're putting on. Just want to clarify that, 50 shares and send on through. There it goes. Okay, so we've got the 50 in there. Let's just take a look at our chart here, and I can show you, now I can kind of adjust this. I just want to put this stop order just below the prior low of the range, right? The expectation is if we're taking out this high here, folks, if we shouldn't come down and make a new low. Otherwise, we could just be flat out wrong on this trade. I put this up around 40. If I back this up, remember this level? Oh, not 40. Kind of a general range. Well, we can keep it on there for now, but I was going to do this, adjust it to this high for now. It's certainly going to be within the range that we're looking at. The reason why I'm doing this is because I just want to see if we start to break up higher here, what we're going to get. I'm going to put this at the prior high for now in anticipation that maybe a 10 or 14-day move might reach this level, although I do want to go ahead and off the bottom, draw the longer term flag range just so we have at least that target on here. I'm using Thinkorswim tools, so therefore it would stay in place. And that was close to our 40 range up top, right there. Okay, so I have this in mind. I'm using this, and perhaps by watching what price action does, because we've done this quite a bit before, if price action comes up and kind of just sort of rounds over a little bit, doesn't give us any good indication, and that's an upside scenario. It doesn't have to be an upside scenario, but if that were to unfold, let us know about that. I mean, we want to watch this because we've taken some trades off here, you know, in anticipation that it wasn't going to hit its range, because that's what can happen at resistance. It can round over sometimes. So I'm just leaving that there as a guide. I could put a line in there too, but the whole idea is, do we add an additional 50 shares here? All right, it's kind of like, how could I say this? I don't know, it reminds me of those old popcorn, the old popcorn I used to have. This kind of dates me a little bit. We used to put popcorn on the stove, right? And it would just pop up. It's kind of like the popcorn kernel effect. You know, you're sitting there, you're waiting, and all of a sudden it just comes up. That's ultimately what we're trying to capture, is that pop up, that sort of surprise move, which is not, I mean, we're expecting it, so it's not a full surprise, but a lot of times they are just really, really sharp out of the gates, these flag pattern follow-throughs, and we're looking for signs of that. Bar strength, quick moves out of the gates. And this one, for example, just recently, as of today, broke above that short-term moving average too. One way to look at it. Okay, so coiled spring may be in action there. I'm going to roll through some others, and VLTO. I hadn't known about this stock before, but it has shown some similar strength. It has not yet begun its move. As you can see, it's not above that 9-period exponential moving average yet, but this could be one that we could keep tabs on. In fact, what I wanted to do on this one is just simply bring it in close, take the high range, right click on it, pull this guy on down, create an alert, and just say at or above this level, breakout, question mark, so that we can take advantage of some of the tools and the capabilities right off of the Thinkorswim platform there for us. What I do like, I mean, what I think is interesting about this chart, I mean, I think a technician could say they like this, is when it takes out this longer term sort of subdivided line of resistance, because we did do that here. Now, it's not unusual to hold near that level, but if we start to break here again, that could be seen as a positive. We just haven't done it yet, so we're going to hold off on this guy here, VLTO, Veralto Corp, and got to spell it out there. And it is water analytics, water treatment. It looks like they're involved in water quality. All right. Speaking of water quality, Utah is the first state to knock fluoride out of the water system. I didn't even know that every state had it. I thought just we did, and nobody wanted it, but it is out of the water system as of May. And I actually can taste a huge difference in the water itself. Here is Mondelez. Now, moving from water to Oreos, we've talked about the Oreo trade a little bit in the past. These guys have Oreos under their portfolio. They've got other things too, but look at this. Are we quite there yet? Maybe not quite there. I'm going to revert back to what was mentioned earlier in our discussion. We were talking about the possibility of the first question that came through, and I'll look at some of these here too. But Martin had a question on RSI divergence. RSI has been holding in there, but look at money flow. Look at money flow. Combination of buyers relative to sellers, netting that out, is what money flow tries to do for us. We hit a high right there. Now, this is an additional indication. This is totally different. It's a totally different sort of variable or sort of dimension you could call price. It's sort of volume's a little bit of a different dimension, I'll be honest with you. But look what happens. We're breaking out here, and this can be, and in other words, this says this was really our high closing price right there. When we hit that level right there, folks, it said, notice because we took it out here on money flow, it says more buyers are coming in relative to sellers. So this could be quite interesting, question mark, right? These guys too. See the gap right there on earnings? I always like to look at the earnings. I think you guys do that with me too. See earnings? Oh yeah, they were selling Oreos. They were selling more than Oreos too. That was about 9 cents beat. And the expectations might have gained, but notice what it's doing. Are we holding our price action? Yes or no? Look at the move off the bottom. The trend line shows a lot, and we're just on the verge of breaking that trend line. I think just today, barely getting above that moving average. This is somewhat interesting. I'm going to go ahead and right click, folks. We're going to put an alert right off the drawing in this case, which is a beautiful thing to be able to do. It's a trend line break. In fact, I'm going to clarify that here. Trend line break, question mark, because it can also come back inside that range as well. But hey, it's got money flow in there. Whoa, could be interesting. We shall see what this looks like. All right. Oh, okay. Some comments about BWA. That was the first one we looked at as well. Put a trade on that. But hey, this one, if it does take that out, we are gonna, you know what? I'm gonna put a trade under the belt. Normally we'd wait for it to break. It'd just be kind of fun to put one in during class. Just a simple 100 shares in here in terms of the move to the upside, so we can position this along with the target as well as potential exit levels with the stop. So let's just do that too. What we got, there's our 100 shares. I know we're close and we don't know if we'll get the break, but if we did get the break, that'd be great. We're kind of like the surfer here, maybe anticipating the wave. Now, I don't surf out here in Utah. There's nothing really to surf on. We've got the Great Salt Lake, and you don't sink in the Great Salt Lake. It's not the same, but it is sort of catching. They do have waves, and people do, surf sort of behind a boat. And we're just picking up on the indications of a wave, something that a surfer, and you guys, in your neck of the woods, I'm sure many of you, that's a good reference point. All right, let's set this up for now. Good tail cancel here, just 100, just a round lot, just to illustrate the trade itself in this example trade in paper money. There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, this potential exit area, stop. I'm going to take it right below that prior low. But here's the thing. We know where T1 target is at. It's very close to where we have the target set up here. I'm going to put it right at that high. That's T1. Right? That's T1 up top, and I could have put 50 shares in there and let the other one ride a little bit, but I'm actually going to do what I'd like to do. I wanted to highlight it first, but if I draw a range over here, and I'm going to get it exact this time, so I'm going to duplicate this, duplicate my line, drag it right over there. If we do break out of that range, that's the target when we break out. Ooh, that's beautiful. Look at that. It adjusts with it. Ooh, I love that. That's different from my other drawing tools, but once you've got that drawn in there, it can adjust with it. That is T2. Now that's high up there, and it could take some time to get up there, and that's not normally the time frame that we trade. However, some of you might say, I might just let a portion go. That's why, I wanted to highlight this up top here and kind of show you that right now. Yeah, and what we can do, I'll set this up after class, but I'll have a 50 here next week of 50 shares and another 50 shares up here, like for somebody that wants to split the difference. Okay. All right, that was Mondelez. Now, there's another one in here, GPC. Remember, we're looking at those that are just on the verge, or we're seeing signs of a flag pattern or any sort of a pattern. We looked at one that might be, a cup and handle. This looks similar to a cup and handle, kind of, too. Genuine Auto Parts, do you see it? Just holding right at that level. not quite above our moving average. We're just getting there. That's, ooh, I don't know. We have to see a close above that level, but this could be one to potentially track into tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead on this one and just say, give me a high above this level. I'm going to put a lot of alerts on. Breaking higher, question mark. I'm going to put that guy in right there. We got a lot. Now, here's a company I think I would be shocked if we didn't all know this or have heard of this, obviously. Walmart. Look at Walmart. Sideways range. Holding a major prior high right there. If you just let your eyes just kind of fall back a little bit, right there. Is that steam beginning to bubble a little bit in the kettle? Are we on the verge? 100 is a big round number, you guys. It's big. I mean, it's the century mark, right? It could be sometimes. And we saw that right here. We have yet to be able to break above it. We gapped right down to it here. If you can break above it, that can be a positive. And we are showing some positive signs, clearly, of higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And even as it stands right now, higher lows on the verge. So we looked at a couple of companies here that aren't maybe as volatile. I mean, what is the beta on this guy? I'm jumping over here. So beta is the relative volatility compared to the market. The market, S&P 500, folks, has a beta of 1. If it's less than that, generally it just moves less than the market, up or down. Walmart, right there. I know Mondelez has got to be less as well. Now I got to say it because I'm curious. MDLZ. Yeah, look at that. It's half the market's volatility. And so looking at some of these, you want to be mindful that, hey, there could be, you know, at least a T1 target in here if we're looking at this. And sometimes it's cool to use just swing trade setups for some of your longer term trades too. I don't want to avoid that. We don't do a ton of that in this class, but that's sort of an overlap that could help you guys because, I mean, it makes sense. If you're trying to get a good entry point for a longer term trade, maybe that's something you could do. How is money flow doing on this one? We saw how it was doing on Mondelez. Okay, we're using accumulation of volume specifically. Oh, well, sort of a consolidation. We could say that they're both consumer staples, right? One's a food manufacturer and one is a retail food, you know. They do a lot of private label, does Walmart, like Great Value. Sam's Club's got their own product as well. But I don't think they actually manufacture specifically. They do a third party, though. Anyhow, look at that. Is that a sign, you guys? Is that a sign right there that we could get going? We're just gonna do what we're gonna do is we're gonna just put a trade on here for the sake of, hey, it might continue to climb here as well. So let's go ahead and just do another one here on this guy and we'll leave it at that. So we'll put at least 2 or 3, well, this is going to be our fourth trade under our belt. I think third. Let's go ahead and just set this guy up for now. In anticipation, we're seeing the early signs of that move, okay? It's almost like the cat is getting ready to pounce. It's not quite there, but it's got eyes on something, the bird. And we're just going to set this guy up right now. We got to do good tail cancel here on both of these potential exit areas, okay? And there is our dialogue. We sent it through, and there we have it. And there you go. Okay. So I've got a little bit more on here as I've set this trade up. And hang on a second. We did actually have, so we have some indications already, but I want to put this one on. It's been developing. I put on some others too for other classes, but anyhow, it's maybe on the verge. We'll see, folks. If you're getting value out of this class, encourage you folks, if you wouldn't mind, just hitting that like button. It just lets me know if you're finding it useful. Again, there's a survey link in the chat, and also be sure to follow us. It's so easy to do. Bottom right hand corner of the screen, just hit subscribe. It's good to be with all of you today. Hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you so much, Cam, for your help as always. And I'll look forward to future discussions with you all. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.